Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, BJA Grantee Training Series, Managing Your Award, hosted by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Danielle Whitestone, Grants Management Specialist with BJA, to begin the presentation. Danielle?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daryl. So first, I just want to take a moment to welcome our new and existing recipients to today's third installment of the Managing Your Award webinar. For some of you, this might be your first grant award with BJA or your first grant with the Office of Justice Program. So if that is the case, welcome and congratulations. First, I'll introduce the presenters and go a little into about what BJA is and to help you understand who we are and what we do. My name is Danielle Whitestone. I am a grants management specialist here at BJA. We also have three other grants management specialists reporting out. That is Caroline Shriver, Danielle Shapiro, and Nick Lethwich. You may also see Eric Dietrich and Jennifer Garza from leadership responding to some questions posed throughout the presentation. So they'll be attending to the question and answer little thing. Next, here we're going to review the history of the Bureau of Justice Assistance, review the revisions to the Part 200 uniform requirements, touch on award elements, and then go over training and other resources. We will leave time at the end for the question and answer session. All right, next up, our poll question. So first one of the day, please choose the best response regarding your experience managing OJP or BJA awards. I'm going to give you all a few moments to select your response. And I mean like 30 seconds. I'm kidding. 35. All right. So if you've managed multiple BJA awards, you've had OJP awards from other offices, maybe like OVC or OJJDP, lots of acronyms, or if you have not managed any. So it's your first federal award ever. All right, Daryl, I think that's good. I think people had enough time. All right, so we got a good mix of some people who have managed multiple awards, some who have not managed any with our office at all, or some it's your first bureau award. So that's awesome. So this is a great opportunity for you all. And now we're going to go into our next poll question, which is who you are and what your role you possess in Just Grants. So while you're looking these over, just keep in mind that some people can assume more than one role in Just Grants, but for the purpose of the poll, I believe you're only able to select one response. So whoever you are representing today. And I seem to have lost the poll. Oh, there it is. Woo! All right, I'll give a couple more seconds for you to select your role, and then I'll see who we have here today. All right, coming in hot. All right, so we have a lot of grant award administrators, some alternate, some financial folks, so that's great. Good mix. Awesome. Thank you all for responding to those questions. All right, so next we're going to get started. We want to take a moment to briefly discuss BJA. So the Bureau of Justice Assistance, or BJA, was created in 1984 to reduce violent crime, create safer communities, and reform our nation's criminal justice system. BJA strengthens the nation's criminal justice system and helps America's state, local, and tribal jurisdictions reduce and prevent crime, reduce recidivism, that's a tongue, and promote a fair and safe criminal justice system. BJA focuses its programmatic and policy efforts on providing a wide range of resources, including training and technical assistance to law enforcement, courts, corrections, treatment, reentry, justice information sharing, and community-based partners to address chronic and emerging criminal justice challenges nationwide. Currently, our BJA director is Carlton Moore. So BJA supports the criminal justice field in a variety of ways. Of course, directly through our grants and cooperative agreements, but also by educating and providing training, researching and publishing what works, as well as consulting with and convening stakeholders across the criminal justice spectrum. We view our relationship with you all as recipients like a partnership. We aim to provide every tool, resource, and support so you can be successful in achieving the goals and objectives of your award. Please view us as a resource and do not hesitate to reach out when you have any questions or concerns, or just really to discuss any aspects of your award. Throughout the course of your award, you will be interacting with multiple people who are here to support your work. First, we have our BJA policy staff. These folks provide national leadership to criminal justice organizations that partner with BJA to identify effective program models for replication and infuse data-driven, evidence-based strategies into operational models, practices, and programs. As their title implies, they also provide policy guidance and training as well as technical assistance to communities and criminal justice partners to meet emerging and chronic criminal justice needs. When it comes to grant programs, the policy staff design the grant programs, and direct technical assistance to help you meet your goals. Next, we have the programs office grant managers. We are responsible for assisting for the post-award functions such as accepting the award all the way through the closeout phase. I cannot express this enough. We are here to guide you through the entire life cycle of your award. So please be sure to touch base with us and reach out if and when you have any questions. We also have our Planning, Performance, and Impact PPI team, who is available to assist with a variety of resources and services that include providing wraparound training and technical assistance on data collection and analysis support, assist with reporting requirements to ensure accurate data reporting, review and clean data to support data integrity, perform data analysis to identify opportunities for training and technical assistance, and last, develop products to share program successes. Our training and technical assistance providers, or the TTA folks, are a supportive service in the field and our policy folks, and they work to relay information regarding the goals and objectives of the program. Water break. All right, so the program's office is responsible for providing timely and accurate grants administration information and assistance across a broad array of BJA grant programs to ensure program success and compliance. The grant manager's name, email address, and phone number are listed in the funded award in Just Grants. On this slide, we have the location where the information can be found, which is located on the right-hand side of the award. Now let's hop into the revisions that were recently made to the Part 200 uniform requirements effective as of October 1st of this year. So while the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, issues the standard guidance, each federal agency must apply the guidance through their own regulations. For your BJA award, the last bullet spells out the changes that are effective for any new awards or any action taken on active awards on or active after October 1st of this year. For awards made before October 1st, the timing of whether and how the Part 200 updates apply is based on the date of the action under the award, not the actual award date. So these updates cannot be applied to actions before October 1st, 2024, that is retroactively. So generally, actions will require prior approval via a grant award modification, or GAM, in Just Grants. So here we have some of the updates. However, this list is not exhaustive, and I'll only briefly mention these. First, the revisions now allow for obligation of administrative closeout costs after the period of performance. Obligations for all other types of costs must be made within the performance period. This is the only exception. So for indirect costs, the de minimis rate has increased from 10% to 15%. And the subrecipient threshold has increased from $25,000 to $50,000 under the modified total direct cost, or MTDC. This means you may charge indirect costs up to the first $50,000 of each subaward. Also, the equipment threshold has increased from $5,000 to $10,000, although it's still the case that you should follow your agency's own threshold for capitalization if it is lower than this. And lastly, some revisions were made to the section on budget and program plan revisions. However, OJP has not revised its policy on requesting no-cost extensions, which still must be submitted 30 days before the project end date. Prior approval of changes to subaward or new subawards is required if there is an award condition to that effect. And just a few more updates to mention. First, the single audit threshold was increased from $750,000 to $1 million. There were also updates to subrecipient monitoring, which include a larger emphasis of the prime recipient monitoring responsibilities, such as risk assessments, including fraud risk, and confirming, and I suggest documenting, that subrecipients are not suspended or debarred from receiving federal funds. Next, there were updates to procurement standards, which now allow for the use of geographic preference for competition, considering small minority women or veteran-owned businesses, as well as labor surplus area firms. And finally, tribes can follow their own procurement policies and procedures when it comes to competition requirements, unless they don't have their own policies, in which case they must follow the federal requirements. Essentially, this means tribes with their own competition standards do not need to request prior approval for a sole source contract as long as they are following their own procurement policies. So OJP hosted 3 question and answer sessions about the updates to the Part 200 uniform requirements and the impact of the future OJP awards. You can view the webinars and the presentation slides on OJP's website. So now I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague, Caroline, who's going to review some of the award elements that you should expect to encounter in the near future. All you, Caroline.
Thanks, Danielle. As mentioned, we are here to support you with any questions you have along the way. So in this next section, we are going to highlight the key award elements. Now, there are many elements to grant award management, and in this session, we are going to look at the first 4 boxes of this slide. The next few slides provide a visual reference, but it is not meant to be a how-to for navigating Just Grants. The training team has some wonderful weekly webinars to show you how to do various actions in Just Grants. Once an award notification is received through Just Grants, you'll want to start with reviewing and even printing all the award documents to read over. Here on this slide, we show how you can go about printing your award package. First, after opening the award in Just Grants, look for the Begin button. Click on that, and then look at the top right side of the page for the Actions button. Once you have clicked the Actions button, choose the Print option. This will produce a PDF document with all the items listed here, from award letter to award conditions. Please note that the Actions button is a handy feature of the Just Grant system with a drop-down box that shows a print option for other actions along the way, such as reporting. I want to stop and highlight this award element because when your agency accepts the grant, it's entering into a legally binding contract with the federal government. Therefore, it's important that you read the terms known here as award conditions thoroughly before accepting the award. The award conditions cover a lot, and we'll talk about some of them later in this webinar. Some award conditions require action by you as the recipient, so a hold on funds might have been added to your award. The Funding Balance and Availability tab is not only a good overview of the grant, but it shows holds on your funds that require action on your part. Please note that the holds will only appear on this tab if the award is accepted and registration is completed in ASAP, which we will discuss in a minute. Now, you may have received communications that the award must be accepted within 45 days. If you haven't already accepted the award, please reach out to your grant manager and let them know an estimate of when you can expect this to occur. The grant award acceptance in Just Grants is creating a legally binding contract with the federal government, so please consider carefully who is accepting the award. Now, award acceptance is a 2-step process, ending with the authorized representative accepting the award electronically in Just Grants. Before that, the Entity Award Administrator, or EA, must make some key role assignments. The Entity Award Administrator role is an important one to consider because this is the only one that can assign or reassign permissions. The EA should be available during this phase and in the future for any staff turnover. Another key role is the authorized representative. They're the person in your organization or within a local unit of government with the authority to sign a contract and enter into a grant agreement. Please note that this is not an active role in grants management, but it's still critical to award acceptance. Once through the pending external assignee and award acceptance phase, you need to set up or ensure there's an account set up in the U.S. Treasury's Automated Standard Application for Payments, or ASAP system. Just Grants and ASAP systems communicate to share information on awards. If you are a current or former OJP grant recipient with an active ASAP account, you hopefully don't need to take any additional action unless another user must be added or your account access has gone inactive. If you are a new OJP grant recipient, after the award is accepted in Just Grants, your agency's EA will receive 2 emails from ASAP to begin the registration process. Please note that there will also be a 2-step login, beginning often with an access point called ID Me. To have the ASAP registration email resent or for assistance in registering an ASAP, you may contact the OCFO customer service or visit this link for ASAP resources. I'm now going to kick it over to my other colleague, Danielle, who will cover some award conditions in depth.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm going to talk about award conditions. As she just mentioned, the award agreement is a contract, and you are responsible for adhering to its conditions. It's important that you read and understand them. Award conditions cover various requirements, such as adherence to the uniform requirements found in 2 CFR Part 200, for example. This slide has more details about award conditions. Next slide, please. Some award conditions in Just Grants put a hold on your grant that will prohibit drawdown and also mean that you should not expend funds until your grant manager submits a clearance. Holds may be applied for various reasons, such as we could not approve or clear your budget prior to award, or if your application had missing documents like insufficient mandatory attachments, or if we need more information, such as about projects that may have an environmental impact. Please note, some withholding conditions may give access to 10% of funds. The 10% of available funds should only be used for necessary startup activities and only for costs that will be in the approved budget. Thank you. Some of your budgets were not approved prior to the award issuance. The most common reasons for this are costs in the wrong category, insufficient budget narrative, and unallowable costs, which I'll go into a little bit more detail next. Your budget may require a review through the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, or OCFO as we call it. In this case, OCFO sends a grant award modification to Just Grants with information about what needs clarification. This will be in the grant management comments section. Please respond to this SCAM. In some cases, the GAA will need to supply the grant manager directly with the budget revisions. Once submitted, the grant manager will review to ensure all issues are addressed and approved to the next level. Please make sure you're in close communication with your grant manager and make sure your withholding is removed prior to beginning spending. Now I'm going to talk about unallowable costs. So as I just said, a budget could be returned for unallowable costs. These may be unallowable or restricted for different reasons, including based on the DOJ financial guide, an executive order, or the program notice of funding opportunity, or NOFO as we call it. Here's a list on this slide of some unallowable costs. The grant's financial guide also has a list, and you can always discuss allowability with your grant manager. Next slide, please. One of your award conditions that could also lead to a hold on the grant is needing to complete the grant financial management training by the assigned grant award administrator and financial manager within 120 days of award acceptance. This self-paced online training generally can be completed within 8 hours. We will put a link in the chat to this. Please email the certificate of completion to your grant manager. If there's any staff turnover, the new GAA or financial manager must also complete the training within 120 days. Next slide, please. As part of your grant, you may make subawards and or enter into procurement contracts with other non-federal parties as part of your grant. Different administrative requirements apply to subawards and procurement contracts, so it's important to properly classify the activity in your budget. This slide will help you determine if what you are working with is a subaward or a procurement contract. Different administrative requirements apply, so it's important to properly classify. I will discuss each category. This slide is about subawards, and I'm going to talk about them next. All subawards under a federal award require prior approval by the funding agency. The approval for most programs can be granted if the specific subaward is listed in the application and BJA issues an award and clears the budget. This is considered approval of the subaward. However, certain programs require express approval of subawards, even if they are included in the application and the program NOFO. And the award conditions will state this. And if you have any questions, certainly ask your grant manager. Next slide, please. Also related to subawards, your award conditions require, and also the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act requires, a specific report on each subaward over $30,000. This must be reported by the end of the month following the date the subaward was issued. You would submit this report through a separate portal called fsrs.gov. This slide has resources with more information. We can also put them in the chat as well. So now I'm going to talk a bit about procurement contracts. The requirement for procurement contracts are listed in the DOJ Grants Financial Guide, Chapter 3.8. You may notice we send you to that guide quite a bit. This slide provides a brief overview. Procurement contracts must be conducted in a manner to provide open and free competition. Grantees must request prior approval for a non-competitive contract over the simplified acquisition threshold, which is currently $250,000. We know this is a lot of information. You'll be able to watch this presentation again. I am now going to pass it to my colleague, Nick.
Thank you, Danielle. All right, everybody, let's talk reports. The Federal Financial Reports, or FFRs, are submitted by the assigned financial manager in Just Grants. The FFR is used to monitor the award and ensure compliance with the grant. It captures key financial data, such as the amount of federal funds dispersed or spent. The performance reporting timeline is dependent upon the program as to the frequency of reporting varies. Most awards submit performance reports on a semi-annual cycle, but there are some that require quarterly reports or even annual reporting. Please review your award and/or, most certainly, reach out to your grant manager to confirm when you need to submit the required performance reports. FFRs reflect obligated and expended funds, not the amount drawn down. They capture the cumulative expenditures each quarter, and regardless of whether funds were expended, the FFRs must be submitted each quarter in Just Grants. Performance reporting is the process by which recipients, you all, progress. Your progress is tracked by reviewing data on grant activities to determine whether the project is being implemented as intended and the desired goals and objectives are being achieved. BJA has established performance measures such as questionnaires or question sets for each grant program. These measures were included in the original solicitation or Notice of Funding Opportunity, as we discussed earlier, NOFO, as you all will hear, and you can either report them directly in Just Grants or also in the Performance Management Tool, or PMT, depending on your program. Performance measures are needed because they identify needs for any training and technical assistance or revisions to the program design or implementation. And just like the FFRs, performance reports still need to be submitted, even if you all have not had any award activities during the reporting period. A word of advice on answering narrative questions for performance reports: please, please, please be as thorough as possible. We want to know here at BJA the good, the bad, and the ugly, so we as your grant managers can assist you all. The more information provided, the better your grant manager can assist, especially if there are barriers. Let's switch gears here a little bit and let's talk about the grant award modifications, or GAMs. We speak in a lot of acronyms. A GAM is used to request changes that require prior approval. The assigned GAA must submit GAMs in Just Grants. And here on this slide, you can see the several types of GAMs that can be submitted. I do want to make a note here that there will be a training specific to requesting project period extensions, a very popular GAM. That training will be in the not too distant future, so stay tuned for that. Above all else, and I think we've said this close to 20 times now, as always, we recommend that you reach out to your grant manager prior to submitting any type of GAM so that we can ensure that you are A, submitting the correct type of GAM, and B, you're submitting the proper information that is required for said GAM. Moving on to award monitoring, there's three types of award monitoring. The first one is substantive communication and general oversight. It's related to proactive grant management activities and ongoing communications that we as BJA grant managers have with you all, the grantees. This can include email correspondence, telephone conversations, and even video conferencing meetings. The second type of monitoring is the annual programmatic desk review. This is a review of materials available in the grant file for the grant manager to make a qualitative assessment on the current state of the state of the recipient's administrative, financial, and programmatic compliance and performance. The last one, and my favorite, is the in-depth monitoring. It includes site visits, whether they be remote or in person, and they also include pre- and post-site visit or remote monitoring activities. Grant managers conduct programmatic in-depth monitoring, which includes a financial review, and the OCFO, they conduct their own separate financial monitoring efforts. With regard to in-depth monitoring, OJP as a whole, we conduct in-depth monitoring on at least 10% of the active grants each federal fiscal year, whether it's on-site or remote. Both cover the same content. They involve a full review of grant documentation and interviews of the pertinent grant staff. This is the opportunity for you to talk about your program, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So they're very vital towards program success. Once the in-depth monitoring is finalized, you all as the recipients will receive a post-monitoring letter with or without issues for resolution, known as IFRs, and any possible training and technical assistance that may be identified. And finally, the closeout. Now, we recognize that for most of you, we have just started. We're on step 8, and closeout is step 1000. But with you all just receiving your award, we know that there's a lot that it's going to take to get to closeout. But it's important to have that end goal in mind. When your project has been successfully completed, BJA will work with you on the closeout process. There will be a separate training on closeouts available to you when you get to that stage, and of course, your BJA grant manager will always be there to assist you. Resources. Now that we're going to conclude this portion of today's training to highlight some of the resources that will be of interest to you as you manage your award. Training. Here are some upcoming trainings to look out for on this slide. We suggest checking the BJA Grantee Training Series webpage, as this information is updated quite regularly. Please keep in mind that the trainings are recorded and posted to the training webpage as well. With regard to recipient resources, I know we have thrown a ton of information at you all, especially if you're newbie grant administrators, and it's understandable if you're overwhelmed, but please don't be. We have a plethora of resources available to you to assist with managing your award. We have guidance for financial and performance reporting and other system resources. And I know we sound like a broken record, but we cannot emphasize this enough. Please, 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 please reach out to your grant manager whenever you have a question, concern, possible change, whatever it is. Your grant managers are here to help you. And lastly, please stay connected with us through social media, Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, or YouTube. Also, please visit the website for any other types of funding opportunities. The QR code does work. Check them out for any publications and initiatives. And with that, I'll check in on our Q&A with our Division Chief Expert Extraordinaire, Jennifer Garza, to see where we're at on Q&A.
Thank you so much, Nick, and good afternoon, everyone. I was just in the middle of typing a response up, but maybe I'll ask the question instead. We'll jump right into it. This one I'm going to direct toward Caroline. Caroline, there was a question related to if an award is, or if a grant is in pending active status. Someone would like to know what that means, if that means they've completed tasks that are required before they can draw down funds, or if there's more they need to do, and how can they tell?
Great question. Thank you, Jennifer. 1 second. There, you can see me now. I would encourage you to go to your award record in Just Grants and look at that funding balance and availability tab to see if there are any holds on your award. I would also ask that you reach out to your grant manager who could provide you additional guidance on if there is a hold, what you need to do in order to resolve that so that you can access funds.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that, Caroline. We have another question that has just popped up. This one is asking if we can assign more than one assistant grant administrator in Just Grants. And I think I'll shoot this one over to Danielle Shapiro. Would you mind taking that one and addressing it for us?
No, not at all. I believe that this can be done. I know we have some excellent guides to Just Grants and this aspect of assigning administrators in Just Grants. I believe it's the entity administrator who can do this, but maybe one of my colleagues can back me up on this.
Daniel,
Hi, Danielle.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. I'm pretty sure that you can only have one grant award administrator and then one alternate. You cannot have two alternates, just one.
And just to piggyback off of that, what Caroline just said, the alternate grant award administrator is not required to take the grants financial management training, only the regular grant award administrator. But obviously we encourage all folks to take it because, like, why not? But it's not a requirement for the alternate, the one alternate.
Lovely. Thank you for the additional information there. I'm going to move on to our next question. I see it's popped up in the chat. This one is regarding some of the reporting that's required under your grant award. The question is, can you please clarify again the federal financial report, drawdown, and performance report process and how they are connected or not connected? Nick, I was wondering if you might want to take this one for action.
Absolutely. So performance reporting, that talks about all of the programmatic progress towards your grants, goals, and activities. Those are to be submitted, whether it's quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. It depends on your grant program, and that's definitely a question that you need to bring up with your grant manager as you progress. With regard to the FFRs, those are to be completed quarterly. Even if you do not have any drawdowns or any expenditures whatsoever for that quarter, you still need to complete it. So at some point during multiple points during the year, you all will be completing some sort of report. Your financial managers are going to be responsible for the FFRs, and your grant award administrators, your GAAs, are going to be responsible for the performance reporting side. So again, more clarification. Again, it depends on your grant program, but your first question should definitely be towards your grant manager as to the frequency of the performance reporting and what those performance reports will look like.
Wow, very comprehensive. Thank you so much for that. Moving right along, because now I see our chat is getting a little fast and furious here with questions. Our next question is also regarding federal financial reports and the timing of the award. If the current federal financial period covers a period of October 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024, but the recipient is awarded the grant at the end of the 2024 calendar year, so let's say sometime in December, are expenses retroactive through the start of the performance period? And I'll leave that up for anyone in our presenters. And would someone like to take that for answering?
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
I would ask that they read the award conditions, because if they have a hold for, let's say, the budget or the program narrative, that would indicate whether or not it's 100% hold and 90% hold. If it's a 90% hold, then you might be able to obligate or expend funds prior to getting that hold lifted, as long as it's within the parameters of your project. But you should definitely check with your grant manager to make sure that those would actually be allowable costs that you can incur prior to getting that hold lifted.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Caroline. Anyone else care to add on before I move on to the next question? No. All righty. Our next question, coming from Sarah Jesse, is regarding sole source contracts. If there's only one provider of services in a recipient's local area, and they were named in the application as a contractor, they will receive an award more over the sole source threshold of $250,000. Curious to know what kind of GAM would be required to be submitted. And the budget, it currently is not cleared under the award. So do they need to receive a clearance for their budget before they can submit a GAM for a sole source contract? And I might pop Danielle Whitestone. Did you want to take that one?
I can do my best.
Right.
Yeah. So sole source contracts are amazing because they require you providing information to us to show that they are the only source available in your area with the knowledge and expertise on whatever topic to provide this service. So yes, if the contract in totality over the course of the performance period exceeds the 250,000 threshold, you will have to submit a programmatic cost GAM. There is a box within that GAM where you can check off, well, I think it's a sole source GAM. Anyway, it's a sole source procurement GAM, and you'll have to provide all the information that is in the sole source checklist, which you can, again, reach out to your grant manager to provide some information to you. I think it's also available on our website, like a checklist for that. But you will have to, every box that you check on the checklist, you will have to provide that details supporting why they're the only source available to provide that service. If you've done the necessary research to identify other individuals or contractors to provide that same service at a lesser cost. So yeah, there's a lot that you would have to provide, but again, work with your grant manager to ensure you're sending over the necessary information so we can get that approved for you on your behalf as soon as possible.
Thank you for that, Danielle. And I'll just chime in there too to say, if you go to the 2024 DOJ financial guide, which should be linked there somewhere in the chat, there's a section about sole source procurements and what you should have in what the criteria is first for a sole source procurement, and then what you should submit to your grant manager for justification to get approval for sole sourcing.
Jennifer,
Oh,
if
go
I
ahead.
could if I could answer one last part of that. I think the grantee indicated that their budget had not yet been cleared, so they wanted to know if they needed to wait until clearance before submitting the GAM. And yes, when your budget gets cleared, that doesn't mean that you automatically have approval for the sole source. You will need to submit a separate sole source GAM to get approval for that contract.
Thank you for that. I love that you jumped in and caught that. I appreciate it. So we got the full totality of the question because it's a little bit of a complicated one. So thank you for doing that.
I also, Jennifer, I plugged in the sole source fact sheet as well. There's a link there.
Oh gosh, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. And that is in the chat there. Did I see that somewhere? Or you saw it in the question itself? Okay, perfect.
For the question itself, I think it's in there. I'm gonna plug it somewhere.
Yeah, I see it. I see it. So it should be underneath the question. That's in the chat, the Q&A chat. Okay, I'm moving on next to a question from Jordan Forbes. This question is, if there's an active holding on our grant pending budget approval, should we delay issuing the subaward included in our application? Daniel Shapiro, would you like to take that one for us?
Thank you. Yes, you should delay expending any funds prior to the final clearance of the budget. So if you have a hold, you should, wait until your budget is cleared. So that is an excellent question.
Yes, definitely. I would concur with that. That we do not advise issuing subawards until your budget's cleared. If there's concerns with the subawards, those should be adjudicated first before you issue any subawards. Moving on next to the next question. I don't see that's been answered yet. It's from William. I apologize if I get the last name wrong. Dugan. William asks if the date brings up a good point of reporting. So we're talking back to a performance and financial reporting. Say your project period begins January 1st, but you don't complete your acceptance of the award until July. You still have to complete FFRs or federal financial reports for the first and second quarter, even though you obviously had no activity. That was a surprise in my first award. And yes, William, that is correct. Even if there's no activity under your award or you haven't accepted the award yet, you still will be required, and Just Grants will automatically generate federal financial reports for you to complete. With there being no activity, these should be fairly easy to knock out. You're not going to report any expenditures or obligations while your award was not active, but you will still be required to submit that. Okay, moving on to our next question that I do not see has been addressed yet. This one's from Melissa Mara. Melissa's asking if BGA categorizes someone as a subaward or an entity as a subaward, do we still need to go through the local RFP process for these vendors? If so, wouldn't it be possible those vendors would change if not chosen through the local competitive process? I'm going to open this one up to our panel if anyone wants to jump in on any thoughts they have initially on that question.
I can jump in here. It's an excellent question. A subaward is different than a procurement, so it would it's categorized in your budget. So there is a section in the budget for subawards and a section in your budget for procurement. So it should be clear which category is which. So for subawards, a very clear criteria about what would need to happen. You need to pass on the award conditions to them. They need to be an evaluation of the risk. There's your risk assessment. So there's certain criteria that apply to subawards and then other criteria that apply to procurement. And so you're referring to procurement, which would be through the RFP process for procurement above a certain award amount. I hope that answers your question. And if anyone
Yes, no, I think you're right there on the money, Danielle. Thank you for that. I saw that our ADD, Eric Dietrich, he also chimed in there noting that the grant recipient's responsible for categorizing third-party relationships as either a subawarder, a contractor slash procurement. So if the proper classification is a subawards, there's no competition required.
Jennifer, one last thing.
No, and I see you chimed in with something too. Oh, was that Caroline or was that Danielle? I apologize.
No, you're good. I think Danielle put in a help desk chat in the chat. And to piggyback off of that, I would say look at your own policies and procedures. How is your organization defining a sub award and a procurement contract? Because that can help you guys come to an accurate determination of what it is you're wanting to pay funds for. And if you still feel a little confused, reach out to your grant manager and they can help you.
No, thank you for adding in there, Carolyn. I see there's a couple other resources that are linked there underneath the question in the Q&A chat. Something from Danielle Whitestone that kind of helps our grantees walk through what's a subaward and what's a procurement, how to properly classify them. Jonathan Falley, it looks like he may have also added in a similar link. So this is this area where our recipients sometimes struggle to properly classify the nature of their third-party relationship. So definitely refer to those resources. And as always, reach back out to your assigned grant manager, and they can help address any questions or concerns you may have as well. I'm going to move on to our next question this time, and it is from Brianne Zweiner. I hope I got that last name right there. And apologies if I didn't. But Brianne's question is, are budget revisions allowed? And how does that work? Such as if the grantee loses staff and has to reallocate funding. Does, Nick, you mind if I boot that one over to you?
Absolutely. So the first step would be reaching out to your grant manager to say, hey, we want to do the following changes, whether it's turnover, which happens a ton, even in the post-COVID world, trying to keep folks in grant-funded positions, it can be relatively tough. So any other types of change to your project, whether it's a scope change, hey, we wanted to do goals and objectives A and B, but because of resources, because of staffing, we weren't able to do B, but now we want to add C. Any other type of major changes that you want to make to your grant award, reach out to your grant manager and say, hey, here's what we want to do. 10 times out of 10, your grant managers are going to say, okay, it sounds like you're changing the scope of your project. Here's the type of GAM you need to do, a change in scope programmatic GAM. With those typically will be a subsequent budget modification GAM to say, hey, per the approved scope change GAM, we now want to memorialize that in our budget, and here's the math to the logic. So I'd say this, your first step will be reaching out to your grant manager to say, here's our proposed plan based upon these issues, or a change, whatever it may be, and then your grant manager will advise you on the next steps.
Great. Thank you for that, Nick. And I'll just chime in there too and just say, in addition to all that, obviously any change in scope, it still needs to align to the program priorities, objectives. Each program has slightly different priorities and sometimes different restrictions on how funds can be spent. So as Nick mentioned, it's always good to reach out to your grant manager and discuss these proposed changes before formally submitting a request. All right, moving on to our next question in the Q&A chat. This one is from Allie. Allie asks that noted that they were advised that their action plan was not approved yet due to a financial gap that needed to be submitted. They were advised to move a line item from procurement to a subaward. Allie and her organization submitted the GAM and Just Grants, but it was denied. And the assigned grant manager told her it was because it was less than a 10% change. She needed to submit a program office approval GAM with justification and a revised budget and narrative. She is trying to find resources on the program office approval GAMs, and also if this change is done in Just Grants or via email. So just summarize, it kind of sounds like there's a separate condition on the award for an action plan. And that action plan wasn't accepted yet, or the action plan wasn't approved yet. I apologize, due to a financial GAM that was still outstanding. The financial GAM was submitted, but it was denied, and some changes were requested. I don't know if anyone in particular wants to take that one for action or for
I'll take it.
Go ahead, Nick.
This specific example sounds like there needs to be a very thorough discussion between the grantee and the grant manager. Because if it was denied, surely the grant manager would provide some feedback as to the reasons why and the next steps. So, in this specific example, if there was a discussion or an email from the grant manager that said, hey, we need to do a program office approval GAM or what have you, your grant manager should say, here's how we need to accomplish that. So I know we say that and it sounds like a catch-all answer, but it truly is. The operation here is reach out to your grant manager and say, I'm confused. I need help. We serve as the cruise directors on this fun ship. So we want to try and navigate you, because we're all on the same side here. We want to try and get these grants accomplished for things to be successful. So I would definitely reach out and bug the crap out of your grant manager to say, hey, I'm stuck here. Help me out and walk me through this.
I love that, Nick, a cruise director. That's a new one for me, but it's a great analogy.
I was going to say chief herder of cats, but tomato.
Oh, no, I love that. Thank you so much for chiming in there. And you're absolutely right. Grants can be confusing, especially if you're new to grants, and your assigned grant manager is there to help and assist you. As Nick noted, we want you to be successful with your grants. We want you to spend the funds. So don't ever hesitate to reach out if you're ever confused. That's what your assigned grant manager is there for. And like he said, bug them. They want to address your questions and help you out. All right, moving on to our next question from Jennifer. Jennifer has a question regarding the concept of, quote, no activity. She notes that they're not expending any funds yet under their award, but they're spending time recruiting for staff and the work it takes to get the subaward contracts in place. She wants to know, this would be considered no activity, or would you consider this as progress? They're not expending funds, but certainly are conducting, not expending funds on these activities, but it's still some sort of performance. Anyone want to take that one? I'll kind of open that up.
Yeah, I think Nick and I both.
Oh, gosh.
And yeah,
You are.
I would definitely, explain, where you are, in your performance reports. I think that is a good time to expand on what is happening or what is not happening, because I know when I'm reviewing performance reports, I like to slide on over to the federal financial reports to see if they kind of mirror each other. So if you're saying that there's activity, I would hope to see some expenditures. If you're saying that there's activity as far as maybe, behind the scenes work, like hiring staff, getting people on board to do the activity, but you haven't actually hired those folks, I would expect to see maybe no expenditures if those are funded personnel. So all those things can be explained in the performance narrative questions, and will definitely help your program or your grant managers, kind of see where that progress is. And then you can also, there's a little question too, where it says, do you need assistance from your BJA grant manager? If you say yes, I'm reaching out to you for sure. So to see how I can assist you. So that's a good opportunity for that as well.
Thank you so much, Danielle. And I apologize for overlooking both yours and I think Nick chimed in there too in the Q&A. So thank you for that. Clearly, I hadn't scrolled down far enough yet to see those. So appreciate you taking those on. Nick, I'm going to just have you address the next question just so that everyone hears it, because I see you responded to it. It was Sarah Jesse. She was asking if they listed an entity as a contractor on their application, if it's okay to switch them to a subaward. Do you mind just sharing your answer with everyone so we can hear it?
Absolutely. So the toolkits that have been shared in this Q&A thread on you all as the grantee agency making that determination based on the questions that are listed in that toolkit as to whether your vendor is either a subawardee or a procurement contract. Once y'all make that determination, and you get with your grant manager, if you need to make a change, your grant manager will provide the proper advisement on, okay, well, we need to reflect that in a grant adjustment modification or grant award modification. So again, once you all make that determination and you have the backup documentation, whether it's through your all's policies, you followed the uniform guidance, so on and so forth, once you make that determination and you need to make a switch, reach out to your grant manager and they'll provide the advisement for the next steps.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you expanding on that. So we all heard it. Many kudos. Moving right along to a question from Jennifer Alfredson. She was asking or stating that she was working on setting up their sub-award and the PMT, and it asked for a sub-award number. She was wondering if there was any guidance on what or where to get that sub-award number. Eric Dietrich, who's working behind the scenes, the Q&A today, I'm not going to ask him to come off camera, but he did address that. And just so that everyone hears it, he recommended that Jennifer reach out to the PMT help desk on this particular issue. As you know, we're not quite sure if there's an expected format or whatnot, or if it's a certain agency identifier. And that brings up a good point. A lot of times, you know, if you're running into issues with, say, the PMT, you know, if you have some questions that are maybe specific to the system, not only can you reach out to your grant manager, but there's also a PMT help desk you can reach out, and we encourage you to do so with some of those particular system issues. We may not be able to adjudicate those directly, but certainly the PMT help desk will assist you with those. Caroline, I'm going to kind of assign this one to you, but I'll read it out loud before asking you to kind of follow up on your answer to it. Michelle Steen was asking or noting that the delay of spending due to the budget clearance causes problems or the projects to be delayed, in which turn causes the projects to appear underspent. The project start date can be months before they're notified of the award, and also the time it takes to be cleared to spend. With that said, a project is now off the timeline and we need a no-cost extension. How soon can recipients request one once they're aware that they may need one?
Thanks, Jennifer. So as John mentioned, you can put in an extension request at any time, but we really encourage you to submit one between 60 to 90 days in advance of the end date, because at that time, you'll have completed most of the grant period. You'll have a better understanding of how much work has been done, how much work you still have left to do. And when you submit that request, you're going to need to provide justification on what you would plan to do with that extension if you were given more time. If you hit the 30-day mark at your end date, you will not be able to submit the extension request yourself, and you'll need to reach out to your grant manager, which is, again, why we encourage you to start having those conversations and submitting that extension request at least 60 to 90 days in advance.
Great. Thank you so much, Caroline. This one, I see that the next question you also chimed in on, and it was from Chantal. Again, I'm going to kick this over to you to expand on once I read it. Just so that everyone knows, the question was, are there any supplementary paperwork that subcontractors have to complete when working with an organization? For instance, some state agencies require a consultant agreement to be signed, summarized, and itemized in order for expenses to be procured. Caroline, can you tell us what your answer was there in the chat?
Yes, definitely. So if you guys are going to be using federal funds to pay subcontractors or do subawards, you need to have policies and procedures in place that meet the federal requirements. So in this instance, I would encourage you to look at your own policies and procedures and see what you have outlined for what type of paperwork is needed.
Great. Thank you again, Caroline. We have a question from Christina Berry that hasn't been addressed, so I'm going to read this out loud and then kind of open it up to our presenters to address. The question is, we have a grant with multiple agencies involved. We are working on getting MOUs in place. Is there a location in the BGA website or a template of some sort to make this process easier for departments without a law department or a legal office? Anyone take that? Oh,
I'll take a stab at it. Depending on your jurisdiction, and you don't have a law department, it may be worth reaching out to your grant manager, because where we manage a ton of different types of grants that I'm sure has an MOU template or an MOU that's currently in play, your grant manager should be able to, at least at a minimum, advise on what that MOU should capture. The elements of the MOU. Party A is going to do this, this, and this with the grant funds. Party B is going to do this, this, and this. We all agree, get the heads of your of the jurisdictions to sign it and be good to go. But without a law enforcement, a law department, I would advise having some. I'd reach out to your jurisdiction's executive branch, whether it's the mayor's office, the county executive, or the state, to have someone with a law degree to check it out. But from a BJA standpoint, reach out to your grant manager. They may have some specific examples, but at the end of the day, if it were me and it was my grant, I would advise them having some lawyer look at it before it's submitted.
great. Thank you, Nick. And I see that Danielle Whitestone added in a link at under the question there with a sample MOU that can be used as a potential guide, depending what the nature of your MOU needs to be. So thank you for adding that, Danielle. I myself wasn't even aware of that one. So I'm
I
learning.
just want to say I was an SAA for 14 years before coming here, and I would Google everything. And OJP is so good with posting so many resources. So just Google MOUs, OJP, and or anything like that, and things will pop up. It's honestly amazing. There's so many resources available here. So, and reach out to your grant manager.
Thank you for chiming in there, Danielle. Appreciate it. Here, I'm going to read off a question from Melissa O'Meara and then Eric Dietrich's response. Melissa was asking or noting that she didn't see subaward policies or samples on the COSEP resource website. She's wondering if there's a template or sample she should be using or that she can reference. And Eric chimed in and just noted that BJA doesn't sample subrecipient policies. The go-to to craft your policies is the requirements in 2 CFR 200. And he added a link in there in his answer. You should follow your agency on format for policies and procedures, for your subrecipient policy and procedures. And if you have partner agencies, you may want to ask them to share their own policies. Moving right along to our next question. This is from Carol Roberts. And Nick, I'm going to boot it over to you to expand on your answer. Carol was asking if she's right in thinking that if we've had a grant and just grants recently, that we are already in ASAP and have received an email. Nick, do you want to address that one?
Just to expand, if there's any question regarding your ASAP status, I would advise reaching out to the OCFO, as they're the assigned stewards over the ASAP system. And I threw the email in there. Shoot them an email with the grant award and just follow up, and they should be able to provide a good answer for you.
Lovely, thank you. Our next question is from Deborah Ottmers, and she was asking if a grant was awarded and spending starts, but is then put on hold. Is that a problem since spending has already began? Daniel Shapiro, did you want to take that one for action?
Sure, yeah, you can see my face. Well, I mean, it doesn't seem typical that the hold would be put on after the budget was cleared. That could happen, for instance, if your ASAP status was not complete. So there are cases where that could happen. But I think it's a case-by-case basis. So generally, the award would receive clearance, and then there might be a hold. But I would check in with your grant manager, because and also you can look under your funding and award status in just grants. But sometimes that's a little tricky to find. So definitely check in with your grant manager about the status and nature of the hold that you have.
Thank you for that, Danielle. And you're absolutely correct. There are certain circumstances where funds can be put on hold. Certainly, if there's past due reporting, the system will automatically put a hold in place. But at least your access to your funds. Um, but it doesn't necessarily mean that spending has to stop. But then there could be other types of holds. An award condition is added that places funds on hold, and you would have to look at the specifics of the award condition. So, as Daniel noted, yes, you absolutely want to follow up with your grant manager if you're not aware for why there might be a hold on your funds. And in some cases, your grant manager should be proactively reaching out to you too, especially if we add an award condition for some reason. Our next question is from Michelle Steen. And Nick, I saw that you answered this one, so I'm going to toss it back to you in a moment. Michelle was asking if there's training information that can be accessed on the NCTE. You want to expand on your response there, Nick?
So I would strongly advise checking out the grant management resource training page that we had talked about during our presentation, because that is updated regularly on all things trainings, especially the project period extensions. I know that's going to be coming up here, hopefully in the not too distant future. So I would advise just bookmark that webpage and check it a couple times a week just to see. BJA does a really good job at sending out training notifications too on email. If you've not signed up for a listserv, we would definitely advise you to do so. But again, when in doubt, reach out to your grant manager.
And Carol, it's like that kind of was the nature of your response as well. Reach out to your grant manager; they can provide you guidance. We can't say it enough. See two more questions in our Q&A. They're both along the same lines and from the same individual, so I'm going to combine them into one. If a quarterly financial report is due, but the grant is on hold, will the system allow the reporting? And then on a financial report, must payroll reporting be provided by position requested or just in total? So it's a two-parter. Does anyone want to take that first part?
Yes, I'll take it. Yeah, so your federal financial reports are due quarterly, regardless if you have any active holds on your award. Obviously, if you have a hold on your award, whether it's 100% or 90%, we would expect that the amount that you are reporting as your expenditures stays within whatever you're allowed to expend or obligate or draw down. So let me go to the part 2 of that. The expenditure is a cumulative report where we're not seeking anything. It's not going to ask you by category or cost category. It's your expenditures in totality. There is a section at the bottom of the FFR that does ask you to provide like the base amount for your indirect costs. So that is, it's not reported separately. It just shows you what base and what the time frame is for calculating that indirect cost rate. But that expenditure for your indirect costs are actually factored into your total cumulative expenditures. So it's not broken down by cost category. So we don't know if it's personnel or whatever.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Danielle. Much appreciated. I was just about to take on the next question myself. And then Nick, I saw you beat me to it. I'll read it out loud and let you expand on your response there. Jennifer was asking if there's a place in Just Grants that lists the date that the award administrator and the financial manager took the required grant financial management training.
So there, unfortunately, is not anything within the grant award within Just Grants. But again, reaching out to your grant manager, we do have the ability to talk with the OCFO folks regarding who has taken the training. So if there's ever a question about that, I'll just send an email to your grant manager and say, hey, can you check? And then we'll hopefully look that up for you and provide an answer.
Thank you, Nick. I don't see any more questions right now at the bottom of our chat. I'm just going to scroll up real quick to see if I see anything that was up at the top that we may have missed. Or just to read out loud here real quick. There was a question about the grant financial management training certificate and how long it's good for once you take the training. And just so everyone's aware, once you take that grant financial management training, it is good for a 3-year period. if you've taken in the past because you had a prior BGA award and you're not sure you're within that 3-year period, of course, reach out to your grant manager. They can check for you. Nick, I just alluded to that. Christine was asking if grantees will be notified if they have not done the grant financial management training. She wasn't sure if they've done it before in the past. In that case, if we're new awards, grant manager should be checking for compliance with that award condition for the grant financial management training, in some cases following up if it appears that you have not taken it. But of course, again, if you're not sure, well, always reach out to your grant manager. It's lines of communication, are very important with your grant manager, and this is something they're more than happy to address for you. There was a question asking if there's required training that's separate from this webinar. Yes, that's the grant financial management training. The assigned grant award administrator and financial manager must take that within 120 days of award acceptance if it has not been taken within the past 3 years. Just in case you missed it in the chat for the webinar, today's webinar is being recorded, and the transcripts and PowerPoint presentation along with the recording will be posted to the BGA website at some point in the near future. An email will be sent to all webinar participants when it is available. Christy Thomas was asked a question about for our presenters. If I start repeating questions we may have already addressed, just let me know. I'm not quite sure where we started and where to end. For the PMT reports, the funding is awarded to a local government for a law enforcement agency program. When reporting, we asked this one before about the questions answered as the law enforcement agency or answered for a local government. Eric Dietrich, he chimed in the questions to the answers in the PMT reporting should be relate back to the program goals and objectives of the project. And then Caroline, you chimed in that there can only be one grant award administrator, one alternate grant award administrator, and those are the individuals.
I answered along with that.
Reporting. Oh, did you write the wrong one?
I did, yeah.
All right. No, I think that covers almost everything that all the questions have been asked in the chat. I'm going to go down to the bottom one more time to see if there's any more questions that may have popped while I was scrolling back up to the top, and I see none. So with that, I'm going to give it just another second or two to see if our participants have any more questions. No,
I just want to throw this last bit of information because I'm super hyped up on caffeine right now, and it's got to go somewhere. Us as grant managers, we can't help you if we don't know what the issues are. So that's one thing I tell all my grantees is that if there are issues, no matter how major, as long as we're not catching the Constitution on fire, please reach out to us so that we can help you mitigate and navigate whatever issues and even successes. I know we talked about issues, but we want to know your successes too. And if you have a success for your project, there is a mechanism within BJA that you can report on successes because we love great news. So say all I had to say this, please reach out to us so that we can help you.
Could not have said it better, Nick. Thank you so much for chiming in there at the end. And yes, we absolutely want to hear about success stories. Without, that's what really makes the case for these programs that you're awarded. So knowing those success stories really helps us sell the program. So we continue to provide this funding to local communities and units of government to support your needs. With that said, I think that concludes our webinar for the day. Daryl, I didn't know if you had any last minute notes that you were going to.
Certainly. Thank you all. And, for reference, I did put in the chat, if you're interested in joining this same webinar, it's going to be held on February 13th, same time. 1 p.m. Eastern. I put the registration link in the chat so you can register there if you want to revisit this. But the content will be very similar. Just a Q&A would differ. So, and also, as mentioned, everybody's going to receive an update when these are posted to the BJA's website. So keep an eye out for that. So on behalf of the Bureau of Justice Assistance and all of our panelists, we want to thank you for joining today's webinar. This will end today's presentation.